Hello, my name is Sean Bell and I'm here to do a vodcast for ES234, and this vodcast is going to compare and examine the Montessori form of education to my own personal experience at a rural state primary school from prep to year 2. I grew up in a rural New South Wales mountain town where I went to a very traditional primary school. And this primary school only had a population of 76, so because it being a farming area, the cultural, social, socio-cultural influences were very much farming, very physical in terms of sport. We were always very mainstream towards a very traditional standpoint on education and curricular intentions. So they used the New South Wales state government's curriculum. Now it's very rigid and very traditional way that the spin they put on it. Very much a teaching approach was the student's role was very much sitting down, copying down and whatever the teacher was dictating on the board, and the teacher would set them activities at the end to just see what they've learned, and then go around and make sure they're writing down and check all the homework. And it was very, very traditional what you see on the TV shows and movies. From a personal standpoint, I found this sort of philosophy quite rigid. It was somewhat helpful for Timmy, but I would have preferred to go through a system that would have been more open to different learning styles and learning approaches. Now, this philosophy and these influences are very, very different to the Montessori system, which we'll now go into in detail. Alright, so I'll give you a brief overview of what the Montessori system is. So, a couple of websites, the Montessori Connections and Montessori Training, describe this education as one which is very inquiry-based, where the student gets very hands-on, often with a lack of technology, with tools provided by the school and educators, and the teacher acts as more of a guide rather than a person who's completely directing the entire learning. Alright, so if we're talking about the student, in a YouTube video by the Building the Pink Tower, you can see that the students have a free range over all activities in several parts of the video. Students are able to choose whatever one they want, and teacher just goes around the classroom and guides the students in education. However, if the students need more help, or there's a group of students that need help, they often turn to the older students within the Montessori school, because in a Montessori system, they don't just group one age group together, it's spanned over 3 years in one classroom. Now, the goals of the education and the curriculum is very mainstream towards students' individual path. So students are encouraged to find their own interests and develop and learn through those experiences, rather than a traditional school, which I explained before, where students are very guided and directed into this particular focus that often isn't the student's interest, and only maybe one or two of the students are actually interested in what they're talking about. Now, in terms of the philosophy behind the Montessori system, there are a number of categories you can have a look at. Axiology, the philosophical study of value and what creates the value. So Montessori is very big on this. It's what creates value to the student and helps them educate themselves as well as other students more effectively. When students in the classroom can't get teacher guidance, say 6-year-olds, and they go to the 9-year-old in the classroom, because Montessori have the 3 year levels in a single year classroom, they go to a more experienced other, so that 9-year-old or 8-year-old or even 7-year-old, go to them and ask them. And this ties into a particular verse in Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpens another. So that's talking about how another peer or fellow educatee would educate each other and help to build each other up together. So upon a lot of research, the socio-cultural influences within the Montessori system range and vary quite a lot. So within the Montessori system, you have a lot of alternate forms of education, so it tends to attract very alternate forms of people, so people who are either at the very least open-minded or very radical and alternative. So you've got those sort of cultural influences coming in. You also have these children who often come from quite a sheltered life, because Montessori system builds upon the idea that students shouldn't watch TV and shouldn't have too much access to the internet and shouldn't play on things like Game Boys and PlayStations and that sort of thing. So you have a very sheltered lifestyle, so that students are coming in with a mind that's sort of almost in a bubble, which sort of gives an idea of the more negative side of Montessori. Alright, so what does this all mean? Overall, the Montessori system is much more effective at engaging the student at an individual level than a traditional school system would be, in my own perspective. However, it doesn't quite prepare students the same way for how open and wide the world is as a traditional system would. However, that is rapidly changing with the introduction of Montessori up to year 10 and even year 12. There's been talks within the Brisbane Montessori School. So this may change over time with the rapid growth of Montessori and the Steiner system, which is closely tied to Montessori. However, at the present moment, I still feel that a traditional form of education would be more beneficial after a student graduates from school. However, I feel highly in traditional form wouldn't be as effective as if a school was to implement elements from the Montessori system into education, which we can see a lot of that rolling out now with the national curriculum. Thank you for listening. This has been my podcast for ES234.